Hello everyone, welcome back. Thank you for being here with us. Today we have a new story to tell you. So, let's start. James Jonathan Pruitt, also known as Jimmy Jack, passed away at the young age of 40, leaving his wife and 3 daughters behind. The lawyer gathered them to read Jimmy Jack's final wishes about his will. The lawyer's helper had just brought coffee to the 4 women, and was now standing by with boxes of tissues. The lawyer thought that those boxes would be necessary. Taking some papers out of a folder, the lawyer apprentice showed them to the family members. It's all Jimmy Jack. He wanted to write down his final instructions by hand. The official legal document with your final wishes has been submitted to the court. You will receive a copy before you go. However, he asked me to read this summary that was written by hand to all 4 of you at the same time. It contains personal messages that are not in the official legal paper. He coughed, drank some water, and started speaking. If someone is reading this to my family, it means I am no longer here. I have created this document with my friend and lawyer, Richard Prentice, to outline the plans for taking care of my family after I pass away. But first, let me provide some context that my daughters may not know. When I fell in love with my lovely and charming wife, Maureen, she smiled sweetly at my affectionate words. I was only 20 years old. My parents wanted me to wait, but Maureen and I were in love. I was already getting money from the Pruitt Family Trust and could easily take care of a family. Therefore, I saw no need to wait for our joy. My parents finally agreed to approve our wedding when we told them about Maureen's pregnancy, which led to the birth of our beautiful daughter, Lydia. My mother still wanted a legal agreement before marriage to safeguard the Pruitt Family Trust. In this agreement before marriage, my wife agreed not to claim any rights to any property held in trust for me or my family. Certainly, my wife wanted to ensure the safety of our children and agreed to sign the paper. As usual, she didn't read the document before signing it. The marriage was happy. I have been feeling happy for the past 20 years. 1 year later, Jocelyn became part of the family. I was a loving father, and they were and still are my lovely daughters. However, 3 were sufficient for my wife. She said that our daughters were taking away the time she wanted to spend with me. I found it adorable. My girlfriend was envious of other women I knew. I agreed to have 3 children, even though I wanted a son. I even offered to have a vasectomy. Instead of that, my wife chose to have a tubal ligation. She kept saying that getting a vasectomy could make me unable to have sex, even though I showed her evidence that it was safe. She didn't want that to happen to her partner. That resolved the issue, and I was content with our valuable trio. Now, at 39 years old, I have been affected by a severe case of leukemia. My doctor said I have the disease at the oldest age he has ever seen, and that the outlook is not good. My parents have passed away, and I don't have any brothers or sisters to donate bone marrow. My blood type AB makes it hard to find donors. Also, I have rare white blood cells that make finding a donor even more difficult. My dear daughters, who have always been very important to me, wanted to get tested, even though the chances of being a match were low. They didn't fit together, obviously. Maureen had guessed they wouldn't do it, and tried to convince them not to get tested to avoid causing them extra pain. There were no matches there, just as expected. As a rich person, I could afford to hire many experts to examine the data, hoping that one of them would discover the miracle we were hoping for. Since I have passed away, you already know that I did not receive that miracle. Instead, I experienced the complete opposite of a miracle. After looking at the matches that were not accepted, a doctor who I had become friends with wondered if there might have been an error in my daughter's tests. Based on the DNA, they were only half-sisters. The same mother has children with 3 different fathers. The lawyer stopped for a moment and drank some water while the girls looked surprised at their mother. Mom, the trio speaking as a single voice. Back in the past, were you unfaithful to Dad? Lydia kept talking. Maureen kept saying no. They must have made a mistake with the samples. Prentice then started reading the document right away. I kept saying it couldn't be done, but the doctor recommended the simplest way to confirm the test was to analyze Maureen's DNA. If there had been a mistake, she wouldn't be the mother of the people being tested. I got one of her hairbrushes and the test showed that she is the mother of our daughters. He stopped again for the usual breaks and smiled as the tissues started being handed out. I stayed at the hospital for a week, saying I needed some tests that could weaken my immune system. Because of this, I had to stay isolated. I was very sad to find out that my wife, whom I loved, had never truly belonged to me, not even before we got married. I had to come to terms with the fact that throughout my whole marriage, I had been cheated on. People started worrying that getting a vasectomy could lead to impotence. I found out that my vasectomy wouldn't have prevented her from getting pregnant again. At that moment, I hired a private detective. He quickly found out that while I was in the hospital, Maureen was seeing multiple lovers. My wife had become a very busy woman. Despite everything, I did understand that my girls, my beloved daughters, were truly my own. They clearly didn't know who their father was, or they wouldn't have agreed to take a paternity test. They cared for me and I cared for them. I will always be their dad and will always want to help and keep them safe. Jocelyn was about to turn 18, so if her parents divorced, child support would not be required. The girl's studies at college were supported by well-funded 529 accounts, so they would be okay. I was about to call my friend Richard Prentice to start the divorce process when I realized how ridiculous it was. I was very sick and might not survive until the divorce was completed. If I stayed married, I would just end up paying for my wife's future relationships if we got divorced. No. Getting divorced was not the solution. I wanted the woman to feel pain, not to benefit from our marriage. The investigator kept looking into my wife's past by talking to her friends and checking her financial records, like her credit card statements. It was written in the documents that everyone found success. My wife often went to a restaurant that was 20 miles away. It was a simple restaurant with nothing special about it, except that it was part of a motel. The restaurant servers and the hotel receptionist were very helpful in sharing information about Maureen's actions, and most importantly, the people she was spending time with. The hotel receptionist thought Maureen was a sex worker. Watching security videos at the motel helped the private investigator get the license plate numbers of the cars driven by the couple. Some of those people who were in love enjoyed boasting while having drinks. It was during one of those conversations that I truly understood how much I was hurt. Maureen only used the motel when I was expected to be at home. At times, the couple played around in my house, often in one of the guest rooms, and they had already met my daughters, my dear daughters. Actually, the private investigator said that a man named George Ramos had a funny story about a day when I returned home unexpectedly. In a chaotic situation like in a funny movie, he had to climb out of a window while my wife threw his clothes out onto the lawn. He managed to escape, and my wife had tidied up the room while my daughters kept me busy downstairs. Jocelyn cried while saying, "Daddy knew he was aware that we were protecting Mom." Many Kleenexes were quickly taken out of the boxes. Printing has persisted. That's the story and full history of my 20-year marriage. I have nothing else to add except to explain the plans I have made and to mention that I forgive my daughters. I believe they didn't tell me about their mother's actions because they love her and want to keep our family together. So, by collaborating with experts and financial advisors, I have created a trust for my daughters. This trust has enough money to guarantee their current lifestyle and that of their children. They are currently receiving benefits from the Pruitt Family Trust, of which I am now in charge. My kids will be taken care of throughout their lives, no matter what happens between their mother and me. Yet there are requirements for the new trust which have also been included in the Pruitt Family Trust. If any of the beneficiaries, like my daughters and their children, do not follow these rules, they will lose their rights to both trusts. Forever. There is only one condition that needs to be fulfilled. If you talk to the woman who is now called Maureen Pruitt, my wife, it will go against the rules of the trusts. Contact can be made in different ways, such as meeting in person, using a third person, or through written, phone, or online communication. The term contact includes any form of communication, presents, money, or assistance, even if it is carried out by someone else. Please provide the text you would like me to simplify. If my widow gets in touch with or reaches out to any beneficiary, it will be considered contact. It will be seen as reaching out and breaking the rules. So, it is best for the person who will receive something to stay far away from my widow. Please provide the text you would like me to simplify. If I leave any belongings or money to my wife in a will or any other way, she and her children will lose their right to inherit. Please provide the text you would like me to simplify. A prize of $250,000 will be given to anyone who reports a rule being broken that harms a person. Maureen has the chance to receive a reward that tests a mother's love. Should she report any wrongdoing by her child, or should she try to get in touch with that child? How powerful is a mother's love? Is it more powerful than the love of a wife? Is it more powerful than the love of a widow for $250,000? Please provide the text you would like me to simplify. If all the people who are supposed to receive money are unable to, then the money will go to the charities listed in the trust documents right away. Please provide the text that you would like me to simplify. In the legal papers, the name Maureen is defined to cover not just my wife, but also any past beneficiaries who have lost their rights. This means that getting in touch with previous recipients will also go against the trust's conditions. Richard Prentice has described all the terms in the legal will and the trust paperwork. His company has been managing the Pruitt Family Trust and will now also manage the second trust, which will be officially named the Jimmy Jack Vengeance Trust. Any questions about that trust should be asked to him. Prentice took another sip of his water and thought about the women who looked surprised, like deer in headlights. Jimmy Jack wanted me to mention that you girls can also qualify for the reward. He also said that if there are fewer beneficiaries, the trust dividends would be higher in case someone gets disqualified. He smiled and went back to the paper. To create the Vengeance Trust, I have transferred most of my belongings into the trust with the support and help of my caring wife. The lawyer stopped when Maureen screamed and said she had never done that. It's not true. She was certain that she had never assisted in moving any belongings. Richard Prentice grabbed a remote control from his desk and pressed the play button. Right away, the big TV on his wall turned on, showing Maureen and the notary from the company sitting together with a stack of papers. The notary was saying that the documents needed to be signed by both her and Jimmy Jack. Then she inquired if Maureen had a chance to read the papers. Impatiently, Maureen said she had it and started signing many forms. The notary asked her once more if she had read the documents, and she replied, "Yes, I have. Of course, do you believe I am not smart?" The notary was visibly annoyed as she looked at the camera while showing each signed document. There would be no question about the identity of those papers. Then she inquired about the many legal papers present. "Mrs. Pruitt, do you want to review these with your lawyer?" It was Maureen's turn to look annoyed and scold the notary. "I can fully understand what I'm agreeing to." She quickly completed signing all the papers in the stack. Maureen switched off the TV and said, "The papers you signed, which you said you understood, were used to transfer nearly all of Jimmy Jack's belongings, including his real estate, to the Vengeance Trust." He went back to what Jimmy Jack had said, while Maureen started breathing quickly. "I have chosen to be kind to my widow. What is left of the property that is not in the trusts, and that my widow will receive, is a total of $20,000. This amount represents $1,000 for each year we were married. I think that, given recent information, that is worth much more than our marriage. $1,000. $20. Maureen was painting, trying to catch her breath. "We were very valuable, even without the Pruitt Trust. How can I make ends meet with only $20,000 a year?" "Jimmy Jack was surprised that you decided to transfer all your belongings to a trust for your daughters." "Yes, you did." Prentice grabbed the remote again. "Do you want to watch the video one more time?" he inquired with a smile. "And you don't understand. Not $20,000 per year. You have inherited a total of $20,000. Maureen stood up and stared angrily at the lawyer. "I'm sorry, but I need a text to work on. Could you please provide a sentence or a paragraph for me to simplify? If you believe you will escape this, you are mistaken. Even if he has put them in a trust, I will simply take them out." Prentice grinned. "It is not possible. You are not included in the trust, and your pride prevents you from touching any of it. No, that paper only talks about the Pruitt Trust." Maureen smiled and said, "No, Maureen, please read the paper. The Pruitt Trust is not referred to. Safeguards all of Jimmy Jack's possessions held in a trust. Every trust includes the Trust of Vengeance." Prentice smiled back at her. "And you helped create the new trust. I can play the video for you again if you want." "Okay," she said angrily. "We will wait to hear the court's decision on this matter." She grabbed her bag and left angrily, shouting, "Come on, girls, let's go." The girls were sitting and looking at each other, while the lawyer was unsure of what to do. Prentice laughed and said, "You can accompany her if you want. The trust's limitations will not begin until tomorrow. Your dad only needed to write one more part of his document. In simple terms, it means that even though he still loved you after you betrayed him, he forgave his daughters. However, he wished for Maureen to be poor and alone, and he could only achieve this by involving you girls. He loved you and raised you like his own child, and he hopes you can see that later." He looked through the window and saw the women gathered around their mother in the parking lot, shouting and arguing. He remembered his last talk with his friend. Jimmy Jack displayed an unusual cruelty when he laughed loudly. "I regret that I can't stay to see the fun. I think that within a year at least 2 of those girls will lose their rights, while one of their other siblings will receive the reward. Will 2 girls get rewards, or will 1 girl get both? Curious people want to know that Jimmy Jack couldn't stop coughing and found it funny. Are you certain we can't figure out a way to have all 3 removed from the trust?" He had informed the dying man that he could include a condition in the agreement that says cheating or getting married would make it invalid. If they are similar to their mother, it will be a bad situation for all of them. Using his best imitation, Pruitt had said, "Make it happen," and it did. Jimmy Jack's final request to his friend was to ensure that both the private investigation company and the third party were informed about the $250,000 prize and the actions that could make someone ineligible to receive it. He was confident that they would watch over his daughters. Just 2 weeks after making changes to his trust, James Jonathan Pruitt passed away happily. I know some people will be curious about what happened to the girls and all the details of the revenge, but since Jimmy Jack will never know, why should you? Thank you for tuning in. If you liked the video, remember to give it a thumbs up, share it, and subscribe. Leave a comment and subscribe to receive more stories similar to this one. See you later.